What's up, everyone? This is the NPBA Season 8 Orre Division Power Rankings. I'm the owner of the league. My name's Joe'd, and we have joining me today.
It's Helix again, doing another PRs because I've been around for so long now.
Yep, so we are doing the Orre Division, which is a little bit weird this year. Well, they're always weird, but
Yeah,
normally we have NatDex divisions, and the Orre Division this year is the Meta Shift League. So what that means is basically all of the rules are exactly the same. There's no like weird moves, weird abilities, anything like that. But instead of all the like 1100 Pokemon being legal, only 400 were legal. And it ended up being about like 430, I think, but around that many were legal. And of that randomized list of like 400 something Pokemon, a lot of them ended up being like really bad, like Little Cup NFE. So ultimately, there were probably around 200 actually usable Pokemon. Um, just to give a little context, the point of meta shift is that essentially you're shifting the meta, you're taking away like certain types arbitrarily, like maybe defog, rapid spin become less common, stuff like that. Ultimately, I was looking through which types are the most common, and we saw fighting, psychic were super common, fire, flying, fairy, and dark were fairly common, and then ground, steel, and ice were very rare. And it was also pretty tough to get poison, electric, grass, and bug, and the rest of them were about in the middle. As for how the draft went, everything that was seven or more points ended up getting drafted. And people were getting sniped literally until the last round. It was pretty brutal. Honestly, this was maybe a bit of a mistake. I probably should have thrown in another 50 Pokemon on that list. But it was still a lot of fun. You're going to see a lot of weird teams. They're going to look a lot weaker than normal just because there's less available Pokemon. But yeah, so that the standard of what a good team is a little bit lower than your standard NatDex league. You have any other comments, Helix, before we start?
no, I just remember looking over the the doc before we released it and thinking this is going to be funny. I almost wish I would have been able to just draft in it because it seemed like that would have been fun and very difficult, and explains why some of these teams look so wonky.
Yeah, so, well, we both made our own rankings. You'll be able to see them on each slide, and we basically just put them in order based on the average between our two rankings. So I think we can kick things off with the first team. Well, I suppose it's the last team in the order. The Chicago Bewares. So we both had this as our worst team. Do you want to kick it off or me?
I mean, I'll kick it off with the very first thing is Walking Wake is just kind of by itself. It feels like there's no sun support, so it just feels out of place. Like it doesn't have Scald, so in a NatDex Legacy where you're trying to get, Scald is so much better on waters. I mean, I know it's got good base stats, and it's it hits pretty hard, but without the sun, it feels so pointless to take as your first overall pick, considering other things you could have taken. Um, for me, I saw that and I was like, this seems like a waste. I thought maybe you're trading it because there is a Sun team. I know you've got Sand with the Houndstone Last Respects, which could, always win games, but if someone just preserves their normal till the very end, I think that's going to make it very difficult. Walking Wake is a good Terra captain in the Sun, but I think without Sun, you might have well just gone Iron Hands or Houndstone. Personally, I think X-Cloud's a great budget pick though for what you had left in points. But the team in general, just three U-turners, well, two rockers, really just the one defogger most of the time, which is Mandibuzz, which is a great one, but makes it a little difficult to run Toxic Stall or an attack plus Roost defog. I think it's a little tougher. It kind of limits you every week, but go ahead. You didn't like it either, so
Yeah, so I had a so I know the Johto power ranks with Coltrane's, he has like a rubric. I made a bit of a rubric, but it wasn't really based on points. It was just kind of things to consider. And I was looking at like offense, defense, priority, setup, speed, pivoting hazards, kind of the standard stuff, as well as like how well you use your Terra captains. And I do think they did choose pretty good Terra captains here. But one of my main issues with this team was your fastest Pokemon is Walking Wake at 109. And of course, you can do like the booster energy stuff to make that a bit faster. And then your next fastest is Tauros at 100. And then after that, you don't have anything that has notable speed. Of course, like the Houndstone speed doubling is relevant, but
I
not
think you
always the
can
most
scarf. I
reliable.
think you can scarf past that pretty easily at 68. I think a lot of mons can get past 2 times pretty easily with a scarf.
Yeah, and also just like you can easily get past Walking Wake, and I found there were a lot of repeated types on here that I didn't really understand. Like, I actually like Exploud quite a bit as like a low tier Terra captain, but Exploud and Meloetta are both like special attacking normal types. You could try like transforming Meloetta and getting the 128 speed on the Pirouette form, but like that's pretty dicey. Then you get like Iron Hands and Tauros are both fighting types. Um, I do. I think Wheezing doesn't get defog, right? That's just Galarian. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a bit rough. And like Shiftry, like you almost actually had the Sun team with like Shiftry, Tauros, Walking Wake. You just don't actually have the Sun here. So a couple like of the lower tiers just don't make a lot of sense to me. And it seems like there's a lot of holes. Like I don't think this team is horrible, but it's definitely the lowest on my list.
Yeah. I agree. I think getting to the pirouette form would be smart every chance you can, just for the speed. But that's kind of tough. So I think we kind of hit this one. Do we want to jump on to the next one?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right.
So the French Frogadiers, we both pretty much agreed on this one. I don't have it as low as you. I actually don't think this one is horrible. I originally had it lower, or I had it higher, and I did drop it a couple spots. Um, Another main issue, kind of similar to last time, is your fastest Pokemon is Mew. But you do have the benefit this time of a lot of priority Pokemon. You have like Dragonite with E-Speed. You've got Ice Shard on Piloswine, Shadow Sneak on Mimikyu, Bullet Punch on Medicham. Aqua Jet on Primarina is even sometimes relevant. You've got very good hazards. So I really like those aspects of the team. Like you have great hazard setters in like Mew, Heatran, even Credillion, Piloswine sometimes, and then Defog on Mew, Dragonite, and then Sarina and Hitmonchan can both spin. So like your hazard game is actually like phenomenal. Um, but you don't have like amazing, you don't have anything fast really at all, and you don't have amazing immediate pressure on offense, which not having either of those I think is a huge issue. Of course, like Heatran and Dragonite and Primarina all do pretty good damage on their own, but none of them are really fast enough to like be able to just come in and revenge kill something, and that's kind of a key aspect of the game that you're really missing out on. So you're going to be relying on like weaker priority moves. Yeah, that's all I got for that one.
Yeah. I know this is a shifted meta, but there's still a lot of broken new things that got entered and into this, and I think the Gen 9 games, depending on who you're playing, but usually don't last a lot of turns. And I think this team really wants to make the game kind of linger. With the Audino region, Cradile is pretty bulky. Serena with the AV is bulky. Piloswine is bulky with the Eviolite. Dragonite multi-scale bulky, Primarina pretty bulky. Mew's best, in my opinion, best set is the Willow kind of Roost or Soft Boil, whatever you're running. Stall, very good. But yeah, you're right. It does have some good removal. I just thought, ooh, I'd take Metachan and Hitmonchan. At this point, you already had good removal for what was in this game and this meta. And I think Hitmonchan just felt extra. Like you were already kind of weak to Fairy, and like why add Hitmonchan at the end? I would have looked to get something faster. Um, or
Yeah,
a
I
bug,
mean,
electric, just something else because it just. I mean, I didn't draft, so I don't know like what was available. Obviously, it
I
just
would
seems
say like
excessive.
the last two or three picks, don't judge them too hard, just because, especially the last two, you had basically no choices. That said, I think like two fighting types as your last two is a bit weird, and like you're not, it's not as bad to have like the double type because you're not bringing both of those to the same game, presumably, but like it still feels a little bit of a waste. I don't know if there's anything you could have gotten in the last round, so I wouldn't fault the Hitmonchan too much. And that's going to be a recurring theme where like you might see their last two Pokemon just be like whatever, you're never bringing that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I just thought it was odd that it was Metacham and then Hitmonchan, but
Yeah, definitely.
all
But
right.
move on.
Yeah, next we've got the Nashville Torracats. I had this one worse than you at 14, but you had this one at 12 if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I let me think. You have kind of a weird team here because there's no like top tiers here. The most expensive Pokemon is like Alakazam, so I don't know why you didn't, especially in this league where stuff went a lot faster, why you wouldn't, stuff like Pokemon went off the board much faster. I don't know why you wouldn't take something a little bit higher in the tiers.
Wait,
That
didn't you
said, like,
take a certain duck first?
oh, we'll get to that. But even I made up for that with my next two picks. Still, like, I do like Volcanion actually a lot as a Terra captain. I think it was underpriced at 13 in the Terra meta. It's really like one of the best Pokemon on this team. The reason I like this a little more is like your speed is very good. You do have the Aerodactyl at the top at 130, and you've got Alakazam at 120. So you're probably gonna be the fastest team in like the majority of your matchups, maybe almost all of them. Um, let's see. I think you have like solid hazards, but none of them are amazing. Your removal is like probably a little suspicious, I would say. I don't see really a dedicated remover, so that might be an issue. Um, yeah, let me see. I don't know why I had this lower. I feel like it was just a little underwhelming. Like, there's not like glaring weaknesses overall. It's just like you don't have that one piece that really like makes this a coherent team that can like actually get a game going to the
Well,
end.
I feel like it's just a lot of stuff kind of thrown together. Like there is no
Yeah,
like what you have no U-turners, which I think is crazy. The speed is obviously good, but it's Aerodactyl and Alakazam, who I mean, maybe in the lightened decks they'll be better, but I don't think they're like premier speedsters anymore. Maybe two generations ago for sure. I love Arrow. I'm especially I'm old. I'm a Gen One guy, so I love both of them as Mons, and I've used them. I thought the Terra Captains were a little odd. I get the Shell Smash, Rapid Spin helps a lot with the Turtonator, but for me, Volcanion, I think the typing for what you have with the water fire helps so much with what you have out there. So I don't know. I just thought it didn't seem like a lot of cohesion. I don't think your removal is very good. And I don't know. It just the eyeball test in this one was yicky. That's no other way to describe it. I just don't particularly love this team.
yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say. You weird thing is like three psychic types, no poison type, no normal type. Kind of not great, but we can maybe look past that a little bit because of the weird meta.
Yeah.
Um, I am unable to see your shared screen, but I'll just pull this up on my end. So just let me
Oh, it
know when you
dropped. Yeah, it's wobbly wiggly tufts. I'll
Yep.
start this one off because I had this at 9 and you had it at 14. And I'll say I think for
Yeah.
me, for a bunch of the middle teams, it was like very small separations of these. They were all kind of just middle of the table until you get to probably like for me the top 4 or 5. Everything in between 6 to like 13, very movable. But for me, this one I feel like Gyarados is a great Terra Captain to run Intimidate with a little more bulk to set up, or Moxie to just come in and win. Um, I would have wondered what Celesteela would be like. I know Latias is also a amazing Terra Captain with Levitate, so you could have gone other ways. I still think Gyarados isn't a bad pick. And this has got pretty pretty great removal. Not great hazards, but I do think there's a lot of bulky offense here that can apply a lot of pressure quickly between Celesteela doing mixed, being tough to break, but also Meteor Beam being able to do a bunch. Latias bulky but also tough to break, can do damage. Florges, everybody forgets, Moonblast still hurts. Hippowdon still, EQ still hurts. Dracozold's good. Imbor. I wonder what Imbor's like as a Terra captain. But I thought this team was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't obviously the best, and it's on the bottom half for me, but I liked it. I thought it looks like a team I would play.
Yeah, I might have put this a little too low, but I definitely like it less than you. I'm personally not a fan of these like bulky, kind of slow-paced teams like this. You do have like fast Pokemon like Cincino, Latias, and Cryogonal, but like Cincino and Cryogonal are like not really real Pokemon, and Latias is fast, but a lot of the time you're running it bulky. Although on this team it might be offensive more often than not.
I think
So
Stored
maybe you do
Power
end up
looks so
utilizing
good
this.
on this team.
Oh, absolutely. My biggest issue, and this is kind of the first thing I look at on all the teams, is like what is your immediate offensive presence? And I don't see it in any like really overbearing capacity, if that makes sense. Like Gyarados and Emboar, and to a lesser extent Florges, can do a lot of damage when they come in, but you don't have one super reliable like fast attacker that's just gonna like start off the game and get a kill or get an easy revenge kill. Um, I also really hate the pivoting here. You only have you kind of have, I guess, baton pass options on like Florges and Latias and like Healing Wish Latias, but your only like attacking pivot move is Cincino, which is kind of mediocre. I agree with you on the Embor thing. I would have probably switched Cryogonal Cincino as a Terra Captain into Embor or whatever the points would have worked out. I don't know what you could have done there, but one thing I do like is the Dracozolt core with the Hippowdon because I think Hippowdon is actually very good here. Its
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses are very well covered by like your kind of main core of Celesteela, Latias, Gyarados. They all work very well together typing wise, and then it since like those four and like kind of Florges too, all like typing wise complement each other very well. It's very easy to just bring Dracozolt as like a cleaner once you get rid of their ground type. So there is definitely some positives to this team. It's just not really my speed, I guess, so to
No,
speak.
yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get the offense thing. I think you're going to be forced to run a lot of setup, but I think he's got the bulky setup that he has is really strong here. So, I'll
And
top
move
on.
on.
Yeah,
So another
that's a huge
disagreement here.
difference. You go ahead
Um,
since you have this as your second worst.
yeah, so I was looking at this team and like the only you have like two offensive Pokemon in Darmg, which is like probably like extremely broken with Terra. We probably should have banned that. That's gonna be really strong. But like then your only other immediate offense is gonna be in Tauros. And you know, you don't even have a lot of like bulky attackers. Like Incineroar could be, Rotom kind of could be, but like none of your like slower Pokemon even have like any speed boosting options to my knowledge. So I really didn't love the setup options or the immediate offense for this team, and that ended up making me rate it quite low. Of course, you do have like nasty plot Rotom. You have Slowking with stored power sets. So and type null sometimes runs like Swords Dance quick attack stuff, but I think it gets quick attack anyway. Um, yeah, this team just didn't really do it for me. I don't see how you end up making progress on the opposing teams. Of course, it's like bulky offense, so you might just try to like toxic stall stuff down until you can get Darn in there. But yeah, this one wasn't for me.
Oh, I get that. I think I've played in a NatX league with Omniterra Darm Galar. It's busted. It's incredibly broken. Eliminating the ice rocks issue instantly gives it so much more power, and being able to actually bring it in and not have to worry about like just constantly switching it in and out and losing a quarter of your health, or you only get 3 or 4 switch ins. It's busted, and obviously you can always run. Like I guess you could. I've never seen it done, but I wonder what Zen mode looks like with Terra. You probably Terra to
No,
survive, get into Zen mode, and then sweep. Um, I like the double regen core. I think that's a really nasty little group there. And then you add in Rotomo, I think is a great utility in the low decks. Grass, Electric's obviously very good offensive typing. And Nasty Plot just makes it so much better. I hate playing Bronzong in draft. The double Psychic's kind of odd, but I see why you grabbed it. Having the another Levitate Mon is a good choice. And obviously, Bullet Puncher would murder us if we didn't mention the Chilly Reception and Arctazult sweep here, which is just something someone's going to have to prep for every single week. And Minior I thought was a good choice to complement another offensive Terra, where you could kind of just shell smash and win really quickly.
yeah, I think yeah, it's kind of funny I rated this team so low. I'm pretty sure they already played 2 games and they won both, and one of them was a mini or sweep.
Oh, it's
Um,
not. This is not his team, isn't it?
yeah, it is.
Okay, not as good. I'll give him that little
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
it's a. I
There
think this is
was
surprising. I think the Terras on this team are really scary, and that's why I rated it so high.
the Terras are very good. I think you're a bit weak to hazards, and I don't know if like you've got Darm every week. You're gonna bring Slowking every week, and then like if you're bringing Incineroar, you're very weak to Earthquake, and you kind of have to bring Rotom and Bronzong, and that's like 5 Pokemon, and then you could try to put Arctozold on there, but then like you're so weak to knockoff and hazards. Of course, Terraing away the hazard weakness for Darm is nice, but like I don't know. I think having your only remover, that was another thing. Your only remover is Rotom, so you have to bring it every week unless you just run around boots on everything. But
Mono boots, man,
I
just go for it.
think Rotom's just not. It's bulky, but it's not quite bulky enough to like always be your dedicated defogger. It will be on this team, but yeah, I think the hazards are going to be a little bit too abusable for me to like this team.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't know this one. I have been paying attention to Orre this season. I didn't know it had 2 wins. That's impressive. But we'll
Yeah,
hop on to the next one.
got
Oh,
the
we were really close on this one.
yeah the Bobo Dioulasso Bulbasaur. That's a city in Burkina Faso, by the way. Um,
Where?
Burkina Faso in Africa.
Okay, I didn't know that. But hey, you learn something new every day. And I love Bulbasaur, so I give him credit there.
Yeah. So let's see. What do I have stuff written for all of these teams. I think like this team is basically just like the setup team. Like everything pretty much can set up. Like Lucario, Moltres, Poltegeist, Braviary, Blaziken, Jirachi. Tangrowth and Jirachi are going to be more like your defensive core, I think, most weeks, but you can run Jirachi offensive as well. My main issue is again the speed. I mean, you're going to find that's a common theme with these lower ranked teams, but like this team can definitely mitigate the speed issue more than the other ones because like Blaziken and Moltres and Poltegeist and even Braviary all have really good speed boosting
Oh,
options.
and Lucario,
And
doesn't it have agility or rock polish too?
it's probably got one of those. It has E-Speed too.
Okay.
I would have liked to see Lucario as a Terra option with E-Speed. Toxtricity is like the obvious choice, but I think you could swap out Clefairy and Clawitzer. Like those are kind of whatever Pokemon. And again, your low tiers are going to be weird. It's not a big deal, but I think you could probably put the Terra onto Lucario and get a little more benefit out of that. But yeah, there's not huge weaknesses. It's just like you might not be able to set up every time, and if you can't, you probably won't win that week. But he did win his first week with a Moltres Galar sweep, so
Yeah, that's one of my
um,
notes I had was I have seen Moltres, Galar, Terra as kill leader, like 16 kills through 3 weeks, kind of shit or stuff. This team I had a little lower just because the first thing I saw was Blaziken, Jirachi, Toxtricity, Lucario was your kind of first four immediate, out of your five you picked, all Earthquake week. I know you have good, Tangrowth is obviously great, and Moltres, Galar, and Braviary Sui are obviously immune. But it becomes rather predictable, and someone just swaps in a Toxic or starts spamming U-turn, and you're kind of just swapping in and out. I think it can be a little difficult if you lose a couple mons in the match and someone just comes in with a Scarf and just EQ sweeps the whole thing or Earth Power sweeps. That was my biggest concern. That, and I mean, Toxtricity is obvious, but I think you should go Poltegeist, Lucario, or Moltres, Galar, or even Braviary, Hisui, Terra. Just Clawitzer and Clefairy just don't feel like they're ever going to come. I would have gone Dreadnought even over Clawitzer.
Yeah, I think the team has a lot of great Terra options. It just chose chose the wrong ones a little bit on the bottom end. Klawitzer did go week one, but I only know I helped this guy prep for his match, so it didn't. I mean, it didn't do anything, but that was just because Moltres already had swept the team. So maybe swapping to Moltres would be a good option.
I'm
But
telling you, it's busted. It is so busted.
yeah, so definitely not a bad team, but a little on the lower end of our scale. So we can move
Yeah.
on. Oh, this is my team.
Yeah. Surf fetched first
So I
pick.
did I did first pick Surfetched, and I don't regret it. Um, I think if I did, quite frankly, if I had first picked like
Chi
one of the
Yu.
top tiers, I think I'd whatever. Take your pick of like the 10 best Pokemon. I'd probably have like one of the top three or four teams, because I think the rest of my team is quite strong. I just really liked Surfetched, so I wanted to take him. But yeah, the glaring weakness is like Lele's Psychic Terrain mitigates a lot of my priorities that I'm utilizing on like Surf Edge, Weavile, and Metagross. But I feel like I have my weaknesses pretty well covered, and I've got some good immediate physical and special preference. Not what am I saying? Presence between Weavile, Lele, and Surfetched, as well as like setup on Superior and Metagross. That
I mean, Banded
I
Metagross goes
enjoy my
crazy.
team. Yeah, you've got me a bit lower, so
I did that just because it was you. You
yeah,
took
it's kind of a
Surfetch
free.
first, and then yeah, I thought the Lele just into Weavile eliminating the Ice Shard, and then Metagross Bullet Punch. Surfetch first impression was like your your easiest way to get revenge kills on some things, and I thought, man, why would you? And I've had first impression on Slitherwing with Lele, and it made it a little tough to play around. It could put you in some tough spots to play around. But I don't actually think the team's all that bad. Pretty good speed tiers, and I do think you do have immediate offense with Lele. Honestly, Weavile Superior is a great setup. Mon Metagross can set up or band. Watch Braviary is, I think, a sleeper pick. People always kind of sleep on. I think it's in draft a pretty usable mon for if you need the flying type. It gives you a great defogger with bulk, U-turn, and you don't need a lot of investment for it to hit hard with that 123, and then return double edge whatever you're using, and Brave Bird close combat. I mean, yeah, it's good. And Vile Plume's obviously a great low tier pick with poison. I think that's a great last grab.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying Charge a Bug. I did bring webs on the first week. Didn't end up winning, but the webs were decent. So we'll see. I always like the Charge a Bug pick. So can move on to the next team, the Chill Chen Paos. So I had this quite high. I think I really like the first like five or so picks. The only thing I wish is that you had Terra Entei for the extreme speed, but Kartana and Gengar are both like they're both quite fast and have insane damage output on like a very good variety of types. And that combined with like Great Tusk being basically just better Landorus, means like your first three just feels so strong to me. I couldn't rate them any lower than this. On a defensive perspective, the team is a bit mediocre. I personally really like Togekiss defensively. I almost exclusively use it defensively, but beyond that, like you have bulky Pokemon, Great Tusk can be defensive, but that is definitely a bit of a weakness, and the pivoting options are like not ideal. You're mainly Magnezone, Volt Switch, and like you probably have to commit Baton Pass on your Togekiss because like Venomoth is not a pivot.
I
But
didn't even
but
know
I,
it got
I,
a
I look
U-turn.
at overall.
Yeah,
What do you
I,
have?
I just didn't. There wasn't much pivoting here. Great Tusk is obviously like a probably considered a top five draft mon right now, and I can't imagine it got any worse in a shrank meta. Um,
It got better because there were almost no ground types.
yeah, and it's a great rapid spin and rocker. Great utility piece here. I thought the Terras were odd. Gengar, I just feel like, I mean, it's a nuke. It's that 130 attack still holds pretty good with Shadow Ball and Sludge. But I would have thought you would have gone Tusk and then maybe something else, or yeah, Kartana to eliminate one of these four-time weaknesses. And that was my biggest criticism is you took two steel types, but you took two relatively frail steel types that don't have rocks. Like I don't know what was available, obviously, so saying this after the fact, but I felt like you took so heavy offense on it that you're so vulnerable, you're so frail. Other than Tusk is going to have to run almost defensively every week, and so's Togekiss, which is fine. But then your bulky water is Bruxish, which is a great Ranbatmon, love it in that. But it's not as scary when you know it's coming. So I just didn't love this team. I didn't think it was bad by any means. It's one of those teams in the middle that was all just kind of okay for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Bruxus pick is weird, and you already had Crawdaunt, which is just like kind of better Bruxish, but also I don't like Crawdaunt that much. I think it's kind of a fake dark, and a fake water. It's just like an attacking Pokemon. Um, but I don't think you need all of the types, especially in this limited meta, because some teams are just not going to have the types that make those like necessary types like water relevant. Um, but definitely a flaw here, and um, yeah. Otherwise, I think it's pretty good. Maybe there could be a bit more like setup Pokemon, but it's not really bad on that regard. You do have Sceptile Unburden that can be like something some weeks, and I don't really know how viable that set is, but
Yeah,
it's another option.
I mean, it's got Swords Dance, Nasty Plot, Bulk Up, Nasty Plot, Swords Dance, Dragon Dance, Swords Dance. I mean, it's not. There's some setup options. It's just I think they're going to be harder to fit into the teams every week when you need some of these mons to do other things. So, not bad. Again, I didn't think it was like a bad team by any means. It's just one of those middle teams for me that after a while it was hard to continue to play some for me. So
I think it's going to be hard to justify Sceptile over Kartana some weeks, so it's really only going to come when you need both, which I think is going to be quite rare. So, on
yeah.
second thought, I actually don't really like Sceptile here, but again, low tiers, it is what it is.
Oh,
We can move on.
maybe just one of the speed. Oh yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's completely valid. It is your fastest Pokemon.
So I see. I Indiana Illumis. I thought it was a pretty decent team. I thought the offense was really, really scary here. Anam. Again, I think I may have gone Anam if it was legal to be Terra Captain. I think it's incredibly busted that way. Egg Slash is a great steel type. I wish you would have gotten one more genie would have been funny if they were even available. But Thundy is Thundy's a good mon. There's just no other way to describe it. Slitherwing, I think, is an underrated mon, and it does so much damage with first impression in close combat. Like your physical offense is so high. I mean, look at the. I mean, Rhyperior and Glastrier are slow, but man, those attacks are sky high and not that easy to break. I
Yeah,
think
I
you
think.
beat me
Oh,
pretty bad the first couple times. The first time we played because of Glastrier and Gen 8.
oh, back in that first league I was ever in, yeah, Glastrier was. I thought Glastrier legitimately was like one of the best Pokemon after my first league.
Yeah.
And I think in our first like draft with points, I had Glastrier at like 13 or 14 because I was like, it's just so good. But
I think it's definitely underrated for sure.
underrated. I think something I wasn't considering. I think this team is actually pretty good in Trick Room with Glastrier, Rhyperior, and Aegislash. I think Indeedee can set Trick Room,
It can. I
if I'm
bet you
not
Delphox
mistaken.
can also set it.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, the downside of this team for me is kind of no defense whatsoever. Like Aegislash kind of exists. Rhyperior is not. You should not be running that defensively. I don't think your typing is way too bad, unless you're a Terra captain, but you're not here. Although I would definitely swap Indeedee's Terra to something else, unless there's some like tech that he knows about that I don't know about. Um, the hazard game is like atrocious here. You've got only rocks on Rhyperior, and then you only have defog on Thunderous, and you have nothing else to my knowledge. And your pivoting is it's not the worst because Thunderous and Slitherwing are almost certainly coming every week for like Volt Switch and U-turn. But you don't have like that slow pivot that I like. I like every team to have at least one slow pivot so you can enable more setup options and like position yourself with like I don't know Thunderous with Nasty Plot or like something with a bulk up set. I think Slitherwing gets bulk up. I could be wrong on that. But you do have a lot of that immediate damage off Enamorous, Thunderous, Slitherwing that like you might not even care about setting up. So that might not be a big deal.
Yeah, I just like the offense here. Um, I think we've noticed there's not a lot of bulk. It seems like I think as I was going through teams, I noticed there wasn't a ton of bulk, and that's probably why I put this team a little bit higher. I might
That's
rearrange
fair.
my Terras if you notice they're not working, but it's fun. I think this will be a really fun team to play. I think a lot of stuff is gonna. This will be a really short game whenever this team comes in,
Absolutely.
which is great. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, no one wants to play a 2 hour 150 turn game. Most people don't, at least.
I mean, that sounds pretty fun to me. But,
No,
um,
not a chance. All right. Oh, this is
got
one of the
the
other ones we had a big difference on, but you can go ahead on this one first.
oh okay. This is the I think it's the silent Waller Breakers. I thought it was Wall Breakers. You had it in your rankings as Wall Breakers,
I
but
probably
like
just saw
from
it
from
as.
a Clash of Clans.
Uh,
But I think it's Waller Breakers. Anyway, that's what I have in the doc at least. Um, anyway, this so I had a very clear top four in my rankings. Like one, two, three, four were like a step above anything below them. And for this team, this was definitely, I guess, the most questionable because obviously it's number four. But I really liked your both your setup options and your immediate damage options. And I think as it's probably become a clear theme, those were like the two things I immediately evaluate on a team. With like Baxcalibur and Goldango, Goldango being a really good scarf option and Baxcalibur being a really good like Dragon Dance option. And then you've got like Kilowattrel, I think is a little bit underrated and also a very good Terramon, especially with like possible Terra Ice or just going like increase your electric output, something like that. And like Dondozo is also very good for setup. And Tauros has a nice low tier fighting, being pretty fast is quite good. You've also just got great speed down the board. A bit of an awkward 100 to 87 speed drop, but I don't think that's a huge deal. Definitely a little weaker in hazard setting, but like Mesprit and Weezing are both some of the best hazard setters for the hazards that they do set. So no complaints there for me. Um, yeah, I honestly don't have much bad about this team, so I'm curious to see why you have it so low.
so I've I'm just a cynic, but I felt like you took Goldango and you took the best hazard preventer in the game, and you took one Stealth Rock. And I think Wheezing Galar is just not very good. It Levitate is great for it, but then there's some weeks you're going to want to run Neutralizing Gas, or you might want to run Misty Surge for some reason, but then it hurts your backs. I mean, it felt it felt odd. I don't know if what the fairies were like, and it may have just been a panic fairy pickup, which might be why. I do like Kilowattrel, but I think Kilowattrel as a Terra Captain is not a bad choice because without it, I think it's very tough to use because it's just so predictable. It doesn't do much otherwise. Um, Eldegoss being your rapid spin with Galar feels like there's just not a lot to remove. Um, then like it just felt odd. It didn't feel like a lot of it really went together for me. Like Bax really excels with just a little bit of hazards on the other team, getting 12 or even better. You can get a spike up to reduce, and then glaive rush to kill anything that takes a lot of damage. 100 like to nuke. It just felt like hazards would have been so good on this team with to finish up some things, but I do like Don Dozo or Bozo as a Terra. I think that's really scary. That was kind of one of the things that kept it higher for me than lower. But it's just not my type of team.
Yeah, I think honestly, your criticisms all boil down to like a disagreement on Wheezing Galar. I think it's actually a pretty good toxic spiker, pretty good defogger, and is quite bulky. And I think you are pretty much always running levitate, but that's not really an issue. I think you're absolutely never running Misty Surge, but
No.
you might have a weird neutralizing gas meta matchup, maybe like against the Darm G team or something. Um, but I think for the most part, Weezing Galar can actually play pretty well. Like you've got like the nice Fairy Dragon Steel. Not that I actually care about type cores, um, but its stats are like pretty high. Of course, on the special side, you're not the bulkiest, but you can make up for that in Mesprit and Goldango. And I don't know. I think just probably disagreeing on how good Weezing is. So
Yeah, I
that
mean
led
that's
us
that's probably
apart.
that, and I think Bax has become from Bax is very predictable for me. It's either Bandit, it's usually Bandit or Dragon Dance, and I think there's probably some decent ways to deal with it, but I don't know. I feel like you just in the heavy offense. I think trying to set up sometimes might be a little difficult with it because it's so easy to outspeed it with a pretty good Scarfer. But I mean it's a great mon. So it's just just not my team here.
Well, let's go to the next one.
Ah,
So
see, I
the
like this team, and you didn't
yeah
like it as
yeah
much.
I still like this team quite a bit. You can go first.
Uh, Chi Yu in Sun. If you have never played against it, it is awful. And I don't think I've seen many things that get flash fire yet come through. So even resistances are not taking. I mean, if you're crazy and run specs, nothing really swaps in under sun to an overheat. If it's scarf, you're still not really swapping in. You're taking 75 instead of 100 and then swaps out and starts to sweep. Glenn's Tapu Fini makes an appearance here, which I think is a pretty good grab considering his dragon is Tyrantrum, who's just wanting to run, uh, Rockhead or Head Smash every single time. I think Brute Bonnet is a good Terra Captain with the Sun just to eliminate the bad typing and kind of become quite annoying. I don't think it's great because you can't at times because you can't spore freely. But still, I think the offensive pressure it can bring is pretty good boosted. And then Hitmonlee with the terrain being a Terra, I think was pretty good. Victory Bell, I hope it gets a sweep, but it seems like a tough one. It may have just been a throwaway because he had points.
I mean, Victory Bill has chlorophyll, and
Yeah.
it gets sword stance. Yeah, I rank this team too low. It should probably be like 5 or 6 realistically, maybe even 4. Um, but I think I like it a bit less than you. Definitely having no real pivots is not great. You're heavily relying on Chi-Yu. Like
Oh yeah.
Tapu Fini's kind of a pivot, even though it doesn't have a pivot move, just because it's so bulky. But like if Chi-Yu goes down, like if you make one misplay and Chi-Yu's dead, like I think this team goes to probably the worst team in the league. But with Chi-Yu, it's like incredible. There's another team like the one with Urshifu, which we haven't gotten to yet, that I have a similar concern about, but like it's much less than this one. So yeah, I don't have the pivots and I don't have the speed here. I think Zebstrika is not going to come too often. So realistically, your fastest Pokemon's base 100, which I don't think you want to be running Scarf Chi-Yu every week. You might just lose to hazards then. But I don't know. Maybe Scarf Chi every week is just fine.
This
Although
it does have some
Hitmonlee,
great removal though in Torkoal, Hitmonlee, and Fenny and Sigilyph.
yeah, the removal is pretty good, and I think Hitmonlee actually is like very good here, both
Yeah.
as setup with setup with Unburden and also Rapid Spin. It's going to be pretty nice here. So yeah, not a lot of complaints. This is the team that wanted to get Walking Wake, and he instead settled for Tapu Fini. Although Walking Wake would probably be just really broken here.
Oh yeah. If it was Chi-Yu, Walking Wake, Torkoal, Brute Bonnet, that might be the.
And he also wanted Hisuian Lilligant, but that would be
Well, yeah.
he has
So
that team in another league actually, but he kept telling me that he was DMing me the whole draft about it. But I think he turned out pretty well. Brute
yeah,
Bonnet sadly can't boost speed is the only issue. It's impossible to get a speed boost with photosynthesis, but who
I don't
cares?
think you're too worried if you change your type to not being 4 times weak to the most common.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're good.
The Terra caps are like perfect here. The low tiers have like some funky setup options with like stored power on Sigilyph and like D-Dance Tyrantrum and maybe Sword Stance Victory Bell, but realistically you're probably bringing your main core every week and not worrying too much about the low tiers because it's all about like Chi-Yu and Hitmonlee and Brute Bonnet here.
Yeah, I think you're bringing frequently you're bringing your first 3 or 4 Hitmonlee and then Sigilyph, Farigiraf, Tyrantrum, Victory Bell, maybe Sandaconda, depending on what you need. So
I like it a lot.
yeah, I think this will be a fun team to play. I do think you're right though. If he loses Chi-Yu for cheap, it may be tough. But Tapu Fini does win like 1 or 2 games a season on its own, so you never
Oh
know.
yeah, stored power there is always an option, but we can go on to the next one.
Oh, we were pretty close on this one.
Yeah. So I guess I can take this one. I mean, it's pretty clear what this team is trying to do, and it's kind of like it feels like a very standard like Gen 8 or Gen 7 draft team with the first three picks. Like I don't even think Kiram was I don't know when Kiram was legal. I didn't actually play in Gen 7. But you've got the Quark drive on both Iron Leaves and Iron Jugulus, and I like it quite a bit because you can boost speed on both of those. And you've got really good physical and special breaking from each. The Jugulus like move pool kind of sucks, but with Terra you can mitigate that a bit. And like without any setup, without needing terrain, like Infernape and Kyurem just have insane damage output. You've got great pivoting. What was that? Four U-turners.
No, you don't have
You've
Parting
got
Shot in there, but he has Parting Shot, Prankster, Grafai, and I'm
yes.
very high on Grafai in any draft. I think it's a phenomenal budget pick.
Yeah, and you've got pretty good priority as well. Lycanroc, I love Lycanroc. I think it's one of the best Terras that you can get. Terra Fighting and Terra Rock for a Cell Rock in close combat, just doing absurdly high damage. And then you've got also some priority on Doublade and Samurott and Infernape. So you've got, your team's super fast. You got great priority. One small issue, your speed drop from Kyurem to Samurott of 95 to 70. It's gonna mean anything that's in that kind of like high 80s, low 90s range just always gets to run Adamant and Modest on you. But I think that's a minor issue. It's gonna be like one or two Pokemon a matchup, and sometimes not even that. Um, Other thing of note, Basculin does get last respects.
Yeah,
So
I thought it was
that's
a good pick here.
yeah. I might have just said everything there is to say about this team. If you have anything more to add,
Yeah, no, I think terrain is so strong, and especially in the electric terrain, and in the cut decks, I think leaves. I just lost to a leaves in a championship game. It is so I'm high on it right now. I think it's very good. I probably would have. I understand why Lycanroc is a Terra Captain. I probably would have just gone leaves because I think your first
don't think
5 are coming every single time, and then it's probably a pick between Lycanroc Dusk and Grafai, depending on the matchup. Maybe Basculin, maybe Samurott, maybe Stunfisk, but I mean, it's this almost looks like a draft that could have been done in a normal division, which is
yeah.
I probably looking at this, I probably should have had this higher in retrospect. I think my biggest complaint was that your only defogger in removal is Coco. and then that removes potentially two of your best win conditions right off the board when you defog your terrain away. So that might be. I think that's maybe a little over critical, but it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest weakness is no defog. Like you defog is a hindrance to you, and that's that's why it's five and not like one or two.
Yeah, you
But
don't really
it's
want to. You prefer
still
not
very
to
good.
run rock or run boots every week on Kiram. Being able to get it like Life Orb or Specs or Band, or like Never Melt Ice or some other shenanigans that you can pull with it. It's also a great Terra Captain if one of your others isn't working. It is really busted.
Yeah, this team, I could see it very much like changing Terra captains week to week.
Oh yeah.
Potentially, like Infernape, Curum, you could swap to Iron Leaves. Like you could potentially have based on the points that everything's set at, you could have I think you could have Iron Jugulus and Iron Leaves both be Terra captains if you want. You could even swap down to Basculin if you want to have like Terra Ghost last respects. So you've got a lot of options if like you see an upcoming matchup has like a really good Terra captain that's not one of your current ones, you could easily swap it over and then swap back after that week, just by using some transactions. So yeah, I think pretty good team here. We can
Yeah.
go to the next one. So the Inferno Sylveon scheme. You have this much higher than me, so
Yeah, I
you can go
think
ahead.
as I went through the teams, I didn't see a ton of really bulky fairies on every team, and I thought, oh, Shifu does so much. I also thought that Cyclozar being able to shed tail to things like Glamora, where it doesn't have to click a sub and can do the nasty, cancerous, toxic stall, is great. A sub onto Dirge, potentially getting boosting Torch Song, or on some of the bulkier things that he had to set up. I think we're good. I'm high on Glamora in the lower draft with all. It gives you great hazards and it gives you a pretty decent removal. I also thought getting the low budget removal was pretty solid here. I didn't. My biggest critique why I didn't have this higher was I think the Terra captains are really really rough.
I don't know why you wouldn't pick Skeledirge. That's like the obvious choice to me, and even Gudra and I think Diancie
Glamora,
would have
I
been
think.
decent options. Glamora, yeah, I don't know. That was what lowered this a bit for me. Like, I feel like I don't like to say like objective things, but I kind of want to say the Terra captains here were objectively the wrong choice.
Oh, I think you're fine to say that.
Your hazard game is great. Like you have multiple good setters. Glamora is like amazing. You have great removal, although you're probably not even going to need to remove stuff most weeks. My biggest issue with this team is just it feels like it's just Urshifu the team. Like you have Urshifu, and then your whole team is built around supporting Urshifu, which I think it does successfully do. You get the Cyclozar to shed tail in. You can Swords Dance up with Urshi. You can set the hazards with Glamora, and then you've got like a nice defensive like Gudra, Skeledirge, Diancie, even Rotom that can like pivot around and like, well, not all of them can pivot, but some of them can, and you know, be a nice backbone. But it's like your only other attacking Pokemon here is like if you want to run offensive Glamora or bring like a Scyther set, which is rarely going to be good, and then like maybe you could do some Skeledirge stuff, but felt like you took Urshifu and you just want to commit to winning with it every week, which realistically will happen most of the time. I think what you said about there not being a lot of fairies is pretty important here. There's like Comfey not existing is very nice. You don't get the priority draining kiss, stuff like that. So Urshifu is even better here than um, where it is normally.
I think we almost banned it when we were discussing.
We It was close. It is Terraban. There's a few things here that are Terraban. So if it's like, oh, why didn't they pick Chi-Yu as their Terra captain? It's because it's Terraban. So
It'll
there's
be
a
a
few that
very
you might,
easy game.
yeah, you might be wondering why they aren't the Terra, and we're not even talking about it. It's because they were banned. So Urshifu's one of those, but yeah, I think Urshifu Cyclozar is going to be pretty scary. And then going back to what I said about the Chi-Yu team, it's like it's going to be great, but if Urshifu goes down, like this team is pretty bad. It's just like a bunch of support and defense, which can sometimes win if Urshifu's broken down the other team enough. But um, you're gonna just need to make sure you're well positioned and don't take any risks with the Urshifu. But it's
No.
obviously a very strong team.
Yeah, figure out who's scarfed. Make sure like yeah, it's I but yeah, I think Shifu just might be the best mon in this current format. So I thought it was just complete. I thought tough
I
to
think
keep this
so.
team low.
Yeah, looking at the list, I think it's probably Urshifu. There's some debate. There's a
Yeah.
few others,
I might,
but
in retrospect, I may have moved the Coco team higher, but we can keep going here because this is funny because
yeah,
we flipped these.
yeah. So I had this one higher, mainly because I think it's kind of like the Urshifu team in that like Basket Legion. You don't, people are obviously assessing Basket Legion as a last respects Pokemon, which it very often will be. But adaptability wave crash is like very hard to resist, and you've seen throughout this whole thing, like almost no teams have bulky waters that are actually good. Almost no teams have bulky grasses, and that's like, and there's very few dragons. So like the three things that are going to counter Basque Legion on the water side are like non-existent. A lot of teams also did not seem to draft like a good normal type. So I think it's just going to be really hard to stop in the same way that Urshifu is hard to stop. You unfortunately don't have any. You have rain setters. I think Azelf gets Rain Dance, and then Pincurchin and Ludicolo, and maybe a couple others. So you have ways to set rain, but you don't actually have a Drizzle Pokemon because there was no Pelipper or Politoed in this meta. But the reason this one gets higher than the Urshifu team is you then have other real options like Zapdos and Hydreigon, which can either just be scarfed and deal a lot of damage or possibly set up. And then you still actually have the same concept with Shedtail Earthworm. Obviously, it's worse than Cyclizar. But you get Sticky Web, Slurpuff. I think it's a better iteration of the Urshifu team that has more backup win cons and also maybe better support as well.
Yeah, I just thought one thing I didn't love was seeing how great the hazards were, and then your only option to remove hazards is that you have to take your own away. So I thought that was a little disappointing. I think Orthworm is a great pickup. I wish Shedtail here was a little more free. I think if you had the Cyclizar instead, you might be in a better spot. But it probably didn't come back to you. I mean, I think this team's got good offense. I've never actually seen Basque Legion do anything, so I'm interested to see how it does. I think obviously with last respects it becomes tough. Your last
I've never
four,
seen it legal.
yeah, I've seen. Yeah, neither have I. I have it in an Uber's league, but it it didn't do much. Knucklestack, I think is an okay kind of pick, but I feel like when I look at the rest of your team, like I don't think it's coming very often.
Never coming.
Pincurchin, Pincurchin I thought was another odd one, but I just don't know. Low tier it's so hard to tell what was available. So I feel like you're almost always going to bring your first five, and then Slurpuff, Drapion, and maybe Frostlass, depending on what you want. But yeah, this one is again a lot of these last three teams to me could have been rather interchangeable. I got to a tough spot of rankings, and people just kind of got put in where I was at the timing.
Yeah. I think Pincurchin and Ludicolo are like not great here. Yeah, you don't have any way to use the Electric Surge on Pincurchin. If you had like one of the Quark Drive Pokemon, that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, it's whatever. I think you pretty much know you're bringing your honestly your first six every week, and maybe you swap out Slurpuff for like something else. Frostlass, I think is actually it's funny. It was your last picked Pokemon at
I
number
think it's
11, but
better
I think
than
it's
the three you picked before it.
yeah, yeah,
How did that
absolutely.
fall so
Frostlass
far
is
back?
with it has triple axle and poltergeist, and you can run physical or special on it, and it's like I think it what is it? It's 110 speed. Yeah, it's like very fast actually. So
Yeah, it's a.
um
I like it in draft with Destiny Bond, Spikes, Physical. I'm pretty sure it gets Ice Shard. Um, Physical
yeah, I think
or Special. It doesn't hit very hard, but you can do some kind of. It's got pretty good support. Cursed Body is
I think I like
better ability than I think
yes.
people give credit for.
Yeah, Curse Body's underrated, and something I like is like you go as elf, you set up hazards, you explode, then you go Frostlass, you take something down with Destiny Bond, and then you have two Pokemon dead on each side, and then you have Last Respects Basket Legion. So I think you have a pretty nice setup into that Last Respects with those two Pokemon. So
I didn't even
it's a
think
nice
about
little
that.
thing. You might.
Yeah.
I wasn't even considering that in my analysis when I ranked this at three. I'd still keep it at three because I think one and two are like far and away number
I
one
think
and
we
two. But
agreed on those too. But
we did, yeah. So I mean, might as well go on to number two.
yep.
Um,
This is Joe, not Joe'd, but Joe's picks.
the other Joe pick.
Yeah, this
Um,
team's gross.
yeah, it's
This is like
just
a regular team again, like a
yeah. I
pretty
saw this and I was
decent
like, this
regular
is
team.
not an OR team.
Yeah, this is like a pretty decent. This would be like a upper half team in a regular draft if you had some sort of speed, like higher speed. But yeah, I think Samurott Hisui is obviously new toy syndrome, but really freaking good. Latios has been a staple for forever. Thundy smacks. I mean, it does so much. Thundy could have been your Terra captain too, but I think Lilligan Hisui with Victory Dance is obviously a great choice.
I think Lilligant's the correct choice, and I think
I think you
it's
could have gone with a
underrated. At least
lot. Could have gone with a lot of options here.
just so strong. If you get one victory dance off, like what is its attack stat?
It's
It's like
105, but if you go
105
hustle,
on both at +1 with hustle. I mean, you have to risk the hustle obviously, but it's like if you hit at +1, like nothing is living that. You get close combat, and then you have like agility set up on Thundurus and Latios. You get Calm Mind. You get Nasty Plot on Thundurus. Uh, You've got Samurott Ceaseless Edge is like one of the best moves in the game. Like maybe the best move in the game. I
I
don't
think
know.
it's
It's
the best. Right?
debatable.
It's definitely debatable right now, but it's up there. It's in the conversation.
Yeah. I think it's just like not a lot of weaknesses. And then like you have all this insane offense and you still got time to make like not an amazing, but at least a decent defensive core between like Registeel, Cofagrigus, and Sandslash to a lesser extent. Like those are
Right.
they're not the best, but like you're getting hazards up. You're gonna have disruption with like Will-O-Wisp and Thunderwave and stuff like that. So um, yeah, really no complaints here.
No, yeah, I mean this is a good team. Old Greg sitting in there, just being the fastest mon, causing cancer, and just toxic everything in sight. It's so annoying. I think Diggersby was a great pickup when you got it. Like it seems like you got it in the seventh round here. And I mean
Yeah,
that is a great U-turn spam, and like getting two immunities that late, two great immunities that late. I mean, I think that was a good pickup. Heracross that late too. Like I don't know how some of these mons made it that far, but yeah,
yeah. It
I think
seems like
this is
he
a
just
really
like
good draft.
it seems like every round except maybe the first round, he just said like, "What is the best mon on the board?" and just took it. And like Samurott, kind of hard to rate because he's still kind of new, but like you know, Hisui and Lilligan in round four was really good. Salazzle should not have made it to round six. There's just so many things here. And then like, even your last two, like Floatzel and Sandslash, are like very good mods for your number 10 and 11 picks.
Floatzel, Wave Crash, Floatzel, Terra Water does a lot of damage.
I used it in season seven, and it is very strong.
What is? That's
And
cool.
you've got Aquajet as well.
Yeah. I don't think there's much more to say except let's move on
Yeah.
to our agreed number one here.
So
Whew.
we agreed on one, two, and 16, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Um, yeah, this was one where it's like if this was a normal draft league team, it wouldn't just be like upper half. It'd probably be like a top four, top three team in like a
It's
normal
good.
draft.
Yeah.
It's just like you've got Bisharp, first of all, Bisharp and Irethorns as Terra, getting rid of their weaknesses is amazing. So Bisharp can just be so bulky with Eviolite. And then you have like insane breaking on physical and special side between Latios, Landorus, Hoopa, insane setup on Quaquaval. Porygon-Z is another breaker. Like you just have everything.
Yeah, I think I I just played a Terra Dark Hoopa. I'm telling you, give it a go. Swap it around so it works. It nothing you two shot everything. Nothing can swap into it. If you're not resisted, you're dying. The choice band just does so much damage with Hyperspace Fury. I mean, it's worth it. I think this is and then you eliminate the 4 times weak to U-turn. Um, this is great. I think the hazard control with you know offensive spinner if you needed to with Quack, and then a good defensive spinner with Delmise, and then obviously the threat where no one can bring the threat of bringing screens or getting a heavy stack and Cinderace just swapping it back over is so scary and just so frustrating. So, I mean, there's not many holes in this. Like Dragonair is your dragon type, but like it's not that big of a deal. Like you have resistances to electric, water, and fire without it. So I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. Something of note, we some people were saying we should have banned Hoopa Unbound from Terra. They're probably correct. This team would probably benefit from changing. And then another thing you get to do is you could, if you switch to Hoopa, you still have enough points to make Frostmoth a Terra, which I think
It's
Frostmoth on its own is actually pretty bad, but with Terra is quite good because its typing is so bad. But if you just go Terra, I don't even know what it would be like, Fairy or whatever you
it's
want.
usually like ground, water, fairy, and then some. I've seen steel, but it's a defensive Terra to get because you have to get to +2 because it's so slow. But
Yeah,
it does
and
kill
it
almost everything at +2.
yeah, yeah, and you have so much pivoting to. I mean, there's just so many other aspects we haven't even assessed yet. Like you've got rapid spin on Quaquaval, with like Aqua Step, rapid spin, Moxie. Like you know, it the team doesn't look insanely fast. You have only two things above 100, but with adding in Quaquaval, like that's basically another. You just should count that as if it's faster than 100, and then you've got Court Change on Cinderace, just as another like way to deal with hazards. And you got three. I don't love the setters, I guess. Like Landorus, Bisharp, and Iron Thorns are like okay setters, so maybe
So
that's like a little bit of a knock. But
I
like,
think Bisharp's pretty good on this team as a setter because
yeah,
Eviolite makes it so much bulkier that running a bulkier set is more beneficial now than obviously it was back when it was its own mon. So I think it's
yeah,
better now as a setter than it was just because you can set knock, sucker, iron head, and that's a pretty good utility set for a mon that has what 125 base attack and 100 defense. And special defense at 70 is not bad with an Eviolite or Eviolite. So I need to draft it. I just need to see what it's like with the Eviolite.
yeah. I think you're right. I think this team is so offensive that Bisharp can just be treated as a defensive mon. You don't even really have to like feel like you're having a big opportunity cost there because like your first four and then Porygon also are like all five of those are just like absolute nukes. You could even try out Porygon as Terra if you want. I would just go Hoopa and then like
I think you
even
go hoop. I think if you don't win your first game, go hoopa just one game. Burn it. I'm telling you. Click Hyperspace
yeah,
Fury with a Choice Band or a Scarf, and you're a Terra Dark, and you're gonna watch things disappear.
look at the so you can see the stats of the team in
It's
kind of the
high.
bottom right. Look at the attack stat. The average is 115. I think there are eight Pokemon there with an attack stat over 110, and
Mm-hmm.
seven of them are over 120. There were a lot of teams that I knocked for not having good breakers because they did not have a single Pokemon over like 100 or 105.
Yeah, it's because
This has
bundles
eight.
took every one.
This has eight over 110, and then you go to the special side and you still have four over 110 on the special side.
Wow.
And then the bulk is obviously not as good, but it's still at least average.
Hey, you know what doesn't matter though? If they all die trying to
Yeah,
get in, like
yeah,
there's just not a lot of swaps you can make. So I think if bundles can get into a good, I don't actually know whose team this is, but if the bundle team here can get a couple good predicts in, you just win because that's all you need. You might only need one or two a game to change that you don't get revenged, and you just win because nothing's
yeah,
taking two shots on this from most of these mons in the cut decks here.
yeah. Something I was thinking when I was seeing this team is like, even though the defense is not great, and you're gonna have to predict a little bit, like the offense is so powerful that you can afford to be wrong like two or three times a game. Like if your Landorus and Cinderace die, you still have Hoopa. If you have to be wrong multiple times for this team really to fall apart.
Yeah, and
Um,
Quack is like
yeah,
I think the best maybe the best snowball mon in the game right now with
Yeah,
Moxie Aqua. You make one wrong prediction, and I think you can lose pretty quickly.
yeah. The other one, I mean, it's not as much of a snowball. It's more of just a sweeper. Is like Landorus itself with rock polish. Like
Yeah.
if you swap out on a Landorus and they decide to rock polish instead of attack you, and you don't have like literally exactly Celesteela, which is the only steel bird in this meta, you pretty much are gonna lose. Unless you have like
Yeah.
Ice Shard. I guess that's the one Ice Shard Aqua Jet you might have a
I
chance,
mean,
but
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, you got to watch out for
And then just
Gravity,
go into Crocker Ball and
Yashi.
you resist those.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You take out Lando is so good. I don't know how Lando made it to the second round, but
I think it was basically a wheel pick.
oh, okay.
Well, no, it was the so he had 15th pick, so he had Cinderace first, then Dubious Ducks took Darmanitan and Slowking, and then it went to Landorus. So Landorus made it to 18th overall, which it definitely should not have. We were talking a bit about like what the best Pokemon in the draft were. I think it's like Landorus, Urshifu, and Chi-Yu probably, followed by like
Probably.
Blaziken, Basculegion, and Tapu Koko. But yeah, those like Landorus should have gone in the first couple rounds. I should have taken Landorus, but I wanted to take
The
a
duck.
much better Pokemon.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it shouldn't have made it there, and Hoopa should not have made it back either. But that's what happened in this team is I don't know if they've played yet, but I really hope this is not on my schedule. I haven't actually checked, but yeah, this is I think the only hope is like hope you can set up before they can kill the thing trying to set up, and then they won't be able to stop you. But that's unlikely.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be tougher than that. But yeah, this team's great. I think this is a nasty team just in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right. So, well, thanks, Helix, for joining me and helping me set this up. And thanks, everyone, for watching. And stay tuned for hopefully the other power rankings that are maybe coming out at some point.
I hope.
Hope you all enjoy the season.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
See ya.